Welcome to the Care Right podcast, your go-to resource for all things elder care. Guiding us through this journey is Annalee Kruger, the founder of Care Right Incorporated, and she has been steadfastly supporting families across the United States. Each episode brings you expert insights, innovative strategies, and practical advice, ensuring that you're well equipped to provide the best possible care for your loved ones. Expect to gain valuable knowledge, learn from real-life stories, and get inspired to take action in your own caregiving journey. So buckle up as we dive into an in-depth discussion of elder care planning and together embrace the journey of caring for aging loved ones on the Care Right podcast.
Hi, everybody. My name is Annalee Kruger with Care Right Incorporated. Thank you for listening to the Caregiver Crisis podcast that we do on a very regular basis. And I wanted to just share again, if you're new to listening to the podcast, about family caregiving and how overwhelming that can be and how that caregiver snowball, caregiving can start out kind of doable, manageable, like, yeah, I've got this. But then as our aging loved ones' needs increase or dementia progresses or they have all of these hospitalizations, it can get very overwhelming very quickly. We know that caregiving and aging can be a positive experience if there's an aging plan in place, meaning we're facilitating family meetings. We're talking about the what whens, not just what ifs, but what whens of aging. What's our plan when dad's dementia progresses, or if mom has another stroke, or if you don't want to wait until crisis time, which I don't recommend you waiting until crisis time. You're starting to see the writing on the wall with your parents, your aging parents, and be like, ooh, what are we going to do? How are we going to best help support mom and dad while we salvage or maintain a healthy, positive family dynamic, family relationships, where we're not jeopardizing our sibling relationship, our relationship with our parents, and certainly not jeopardizing our finances and careers and our own marriages or relationships because we're having to always come to the rescue anytime there's a family crisis with mom and dad. So that's what Care Right does. That's what I built my company to do in 2011, is work with these families all across the country. We join in your journey wherever you are, wherever you live, but also wherever you are in the caregiving or aging journey. Maybe you're already a caregiver and you're getting burned out because there's too many demands on your time, your energy, or you're in the beginning stages of saying, things aren't looking as good with mom and dad at home as what I thought. So what is our plan? What are their goals? What do they have for finances? Because finances always determine what someone's options are, right? So we look at all of that. We facilitate the family meeting and we put an aging plan in place for what are current care needs that might be needed now. But what do we also know from a longer term planning perspective? Care needs, what if aging in place at home is no longer safe, feasible, affordable, or manageable? Where does it make sense for mom and dad to live, and what kind of communities might they qualify to get into? What are some of those considerations that we need to be thinking about as a family for what options our parents have for what they can afford? So we also know that most families don't talk about, what do you have in place, mom and dad? Do you have a living will, power of attorney? Dad, are you a veteran? Are you getting any aid and attendance? Do you have your funeral arrangements taken care of? What are your accounts, your passwords, all of that information? We work with families as part of our aging planning package is the grab and go binder, right? Because you need to get all of your documents and your insurance policies, your assets. If you're a business owner, you need to have your business succession plan. Because what if something happens to you, right? Not just your mom and dad, but what if something happens to you? How prepared, how organized are you and your family for having your documents in order? One of the worst things that is totally preventable is caregiver burnout. Again, with an aging plan, you don't get burned out as a caregiver because that means we have enough supports in place for now and down the road. And we're teaching families how to communicate more effectively. But the other thing that's overwhelming for families is when they find themselves in the crisis and dad's in the hospital And the doctors are like, okay, we need the living will and the healthcare power of attorney. And you're sitting there scratching your head going, I don't know, we never talked about that. All of this angst really is preventable if we put a plan together and get organized now versus always in crisis mode. So that said, if you find yourself in a crisis, that's our specialty is crisis management and then aging planning to address once the crisis is managed. So that's kind of CareRight in a nutshell. We're virtual. We've been nationwide since I built my business in 2011 because families don't live down the street from each other anymore. So I went virtual right away when I opened up my business, and that's where we're at today. So part of this Caregiver Crisis podcast is I always try to find really cool people doing really cool things and really important work. And so today I'm excited to introduce you to Janet. I'm going to go through her incredibly impressive bio. So hang with me while I go through this. She's just really super cool. And I'm so glad that we met. So Janet is an entrepreneur with over 25 years as CEO of her own digital marketing agency. Am I saying this right? Tattoo? Mm-hmm. Really? Okay, yes. Good. Tattoo Digital Media. She is a consultant, coach, and facilitator for leaders in hospitality, tech, marketing, and nonprofits, offering approachable tools from mindfulness-based emotional intelligence and cognitive behavioral therapy. She's also a best-selling author, podcaster, and public speaker. Her role at Nearly Mindful is human potential facilitator, assisting people in realizing their best selves through coaching, workshops, and retreats. So without further ado, welcome, Janet. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So we know that attention spans are short, people are busy. And since many of the people that are listening to this are family caregivers, we keep these podcasts kind of short and sweet, down and dirty, with just really important information that they need to know to help them get through their day or that next medical crisis or maintain their jobs or whatever they need to do. So we're going to talk today about mindfulness and self-care and self-awareness. So we know everybody is really busy, right? I just said, I was 3 minutes late to get on this podcast because my schedule got booked way too tight back to back. And so, sort of kind of ironically funny, when I got on the Zoom link with Janet, the first thing I see is her sign behind her that just says, "Just breathe." Because I'm like, okay, we got this. Let's do this. So do we really have time to be mindful?
Yes. The thing is that, as caregivers, as humans, I mean, let's face it, we're all caregivers of some kind. And we get caught up in what we're doing and we don't have time to think. We forget to breathe. We find that we're holding our breaths. And we're just certain that we don't have time to be mindful. But if we're not mindful, we lose time when we're not paying attention. Because really, being mindful is just being present in this moment. It's not answering my email. It's not thinking about lunch. It's not worrying about our loved ones. And what I love that CareRight does is really help us to be more organized, be more prepared to actually take care of ourselves. At the end of the day, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of others. And that starts with, the sign behind me says, "Just breathe." So just stop right now. Are you breathing? Are you holding your breath? Can you take one breath? And in that one breath, we have a micro moment of presence. And that's really what the core of all of this is. And people make a big deal out of it. And they're like, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time for self-care." But if you don't have time for self-care, you're going to suffer, and you're going to suffer really soon. And as we know, with aging, it can take a long time.
And it's a bumpy process. Aging is a bumpy process because
yes,
people, they're in and out of the hospital, mom falls unexpectedly, or dad's Parkinson's progresses. And so, what my clients, when they're coming to me, it's almost always the burned out adult kids, because they're like, without me doing what I'm doing for mom and dad, they wouldn't be able to stay at home. Right.
Mhm.
But that means that these adult kids are leaving work early, or they're not taking those job promotions, or their husbands or wives are like, I'm so angry at you because you don't have any time and energy for our marriage or our relationship, because your parents consume everything about you, right? Just the worry, the angst, and then the actual hands-on work, or having to jump on a flight every time there's an issue. So when you talk about mindfulness and time, and self-care, you have to. And that's the problem when families call us, they let caregiving consume themselves, because they didn't know about aging planning or self-care, or it just, everything happened so fast and they got thrust into that role of family caregiving, that by the time families come to me or find me, they're in survival mode. They're just trying to get through the day of all their work tasks that need to be done, their own personal family tasks, and what their parents' needs are. And there's not a lot of energy and time left, but that's not sustainable and it's not healthy. So that's why I'm so glad we're talking about this topic today, because what you're probably doing at home with your family, or your aging parents, or with your career because of caregiving issues, it's simply not sustainable. And that's when we see depression, anxiety, work themselves in, because we don't have a plan in place and we haven't taken the time that we need to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. When a lot of my clients are at all different levels of this process of caring for someone, and they may have gotten into it all of a sudden, as you said, mom had a fall, there was a diagnosis, whatever it was, it catches you off guard and you go into survival mode, you go into protection mode, and you go into this kind of closed in window where you can't see anything but this thing in front of you. And when you do that, you're isolating yourself and you're limiting your own awareness of yourself. How am I doing? How am I feeling right now? And some people think that feels selfish, but it's not at all, because we really need to be able to get grounded, be very self-aware of how we're responding to things. Wow, I'm really stressed and overwhelmed right now. I need to just take a breath. I need to just go for a walk. Figuring out those tools that we all have at our disposal to take a break is really crucial. And that's some of the things I teach with microdose mindfulness, is really to understand this does not have to be an all-day thing. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. We can take a moment.
I think it's important to, because you and I do what we do, right? Like, we don't do the same things, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be on the podcast. But we do kind of like we would work really well together, because you're doing things that I don't do with families. You're not doing planning and family mediation and family meetings and stuff like that. But what caregivers don't appreciate about their situation is, because everything just happens so quickly, they get thrust into that role, or they think, oh, well, this will only be 2 to 4 weeks until mom feels better. Well, then mom has another fall, or she has a stroke, or dad has a stroke, then what? So people don't realize that A, they're a caregiver, and B, how burned out they are. So if we just take a second and just, what does caregiver burnout look like? It's like when you get that phone call of like, okay, mom needs this now, or she fell again, or she's in the hospital, and your first reaction has gone from, oh my gosh, I hope she's okay, to like, oh geez, now what? Now I can't make that vacation that I scheduled a year ago, or now I can't take that job promotion or that work trip. It's like you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, or people that care about you are saying, we haven't seen you for so long, what's going on with you? Or like what you shared about just being isolated, because you just don't have enough energy and time left in the day to go to book club or Bible study, or to get your hair done. So it's, how do you feel emotionally? Do you feel like you're always just wound up and wound for sound when you're trying to sleep. Then as soon as your head hits the pillow, you're like, oh, did dad get his medication from the pharmacy today? Or what if he falls again tonight and I can't, I can't help him because, I don't know that he fell. So it's always that angst, that worry, that just kind of burnout, or that response of, oh, geez, now what? How am I supposed to handle all of this? Well, it's through aging planning and talking
Yeah,
things and being mindful and realizing we're all human. We can't fix everything, right? So
exactly.
that's why you
And
would
that's
want
why
that
I wrote the book.
professional.
I wrote the book called When Life Hits the Fan for a reason,
Yeah.
because that's really how you feel. And
Mhm.
you have that sense of overwhelm. And, when we're talking about dealing with the family, dealing with our friends, some things we may not want to share, other things are not ours to share. Other times we feel really vulnerable by exposing that, yes, I'm dealing with a situation right now and I'm really overwhelmed and I don't have time to talk to you right now. That's
Mhm.
okay. You can say, I'm just not available right now, and take a break for yourself. This whole idea of being aware of where we're at right now is pretty simple. There are very simple tools that we can use to get to, I'm really overwhelmed right now. I need a break. And that break does not have to be an hour. It doesn't mean you have to leave the house. There are simple things that we can do to just stop,
Mhm.
recognize where we are, and also to recognize where the people that we're dealing with are. Because, we have to meet everybody where they are. And if people are in panic mode, then we need to be able to allow them to have the space that they need and then to help calm them.
Mhm.
Because, the family issues are huge. Everybody has a different perspective, everybody has a different role, everybody has a different, oh, well, you should be doing this. And we need to be able to manage that as well. And I think, having a plan is fabulous as a way to be organized in how we approach things, but you have to include yourself in that
Mhm.
plan too.
Mhm. Because oftentimes the caregiver is the glue holding everything together. So if
Absolutely.
you don't take care of yourself, this is what we talk about with families literally every single day is, okay, so what's your plan if you take ill, or you have your own, health issue and are hospitalized, or what if you need surgery? What's the plan? What's the backup plan? And just going through life willy-nilly like that without having a plan in any type of situation would make me nervous, right?
Mhm.
But when you have a plan and you have that peace of mind, then when that crisis happens, or if you do need that surgery, you're like, you know what? I don't have to put off my surgery because I have an aging plan, and this is what we're gonna do. This is the care that we're gonna need to implement, and so forth. So that that planning and that mindfulness to be able to put a plan in place is what's the critical piece.
Yes. And it's when you have a plan, then that gives you time to be able to have time for yourself, to be able
Mhm.
to focus on your own self care and the care for the other person as well. It could be the whole family.
Right.
How are you going to manage that? Well, the first thing you're going to do is really get grounded in, this is where I am right now.
Mhm.
And, it's very common for people to say, oh, well, it's going to end soon, or this is going to pass, all of those things. It's not. And it's going to go on. And there's always going to be something else. And if you say, I'm going to wait until to do blah, it's not helpful to you. You need to be able to say, okay, what are the things that I can do to help myself relax right now?
Mhm.
Could it be reading a book? Could it be looking out the window and looking at trees? Seeing the color green can be very calming to our
Mhm.
minds. We need to be able to take a break, get our minds off this current thing, and allow ourselves to rest. Even
Mhm.
those little micro rests can make a huge difference in our overall well being and our reactions to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's there is no doubt about that. And when when people can come up for air, just like any of us, if we overwork ourselves and overstress ourselves, you can't think clearly. You can't think
Right.
logically, even though the logical answer might be right there, but you're so in survival mode or so much inside your head that you don't see it because you got too much stuff going on, right? So once you can kind of clear that slate and give your mind some like space to breathe and think,
Mhm.
the answers kind of can come to you, right? But you have to get to that point first. And that's I know the sign "just breathe" has been there like forever, like but it's so simple and people overlook it. But just take a breath and step back and be like, I got this. Because there are physiological benefits to be able to do that, right?
Yes. Yes. When we
Breathing,
find,
laughing, all of those things are easy, kind of quick little self-care things. Just start laughing because that increases our endorphins and there's a whole scientific thing about all of that, but just even those quick little tips, right? So tell me about self-awareness as a self-care strategy and compassionate communication tips.
oh, well, there's a couple of those.
Yeah.
Being aware of ourselves is a self-care strategy in that, oh, I'm really stressed right now. This isn't the time for me to do this. I really need to step back, recognizing within ourselves that, I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. And then, giving yourself the option to step back and list things. What am I overwhelmed by? And what do I have to do right now? And when you start making those lists of what do I really have to do right now, as opposed to what do I feel like I have to do right now, they're completely different lists. So
Mhm.
able to recognize I'm overloading myself. I'm not taking care of myself. And I need to create space, as you said, for a little bit of self-care. It could be a cup of tea. It could be simply taking a breath. When we take a breath and notice that our whole body is actually tense, we can do a long exhale, and that long exhale actually calms the body. It stimulates the vagus nerve. It starts our parasympathetic system to be calmer. And it can help us a lot in a very stressful situation to be able to just recognize, I just need a breath. One breath, that's all you got to do. It isn't like a whole big thing. Sure,
Mhm.
you can meditate. Meditation is a wonderful tool, but it's a tool. Are you going to use that tool right now? Maybe, maybe not. Oftentimes we're sitting in an emergency room or
Yeah,
we're
I was gonna
waiting
say
for
that. You
something.
can do this anywhere.
Yeah. And you can say, okay, I'm just going to take a moment and I'm just going to be present with myself this long. That's it. It can be very grounding and it can help you be less reactive and more responsive. It can help you be more resilient because you can start to set yourself up to, okay, this is what I need to do to take care of myself.
Mhm.
Everyone has something different, but we can find those things. And that's part of what I do is help people find, okay, what are the things that are going to help you reground, get recentered, and feel more control in your life.
Mhm. Yeah. We talk about that with our clients too, because they are coming to us in so much discomfort. No one ever calls care right because things are going well, right? They're burned out, they're realizing what they're doing isn't working, and they're like, I don't. So I always ask, how much grit do you have left in you? And they're like, "Ugh, I'm already like, I'm done. Like I am done." And so those are obviously crisis people. So I'm like, okay, so what does help you for self-care? Because nowadays that's like a word everybody knows, right? But back in the day, it was like, what are you talking about self-care? But what are some techniques that you use? And so my clients will share, because I cover that part of it too, because that is part of aging planning with what's not working well. Well, I'm burned out. So how can we back into an aging plan? Let's get you on track first, right? As a caregiver. So a lot of them will say there's just so much noise. There's so much noise. I got
Mhm.
conference calls all day, or I got my kids texting me. I got. So what some of them will do, they'll just put like those sound earbuds in, which totally block out all the noise, whether it's
Mhm.
traffic, whatever noise. and they just sit quietly, or they listen to Pandora or a podcast that they've always wanted to listen to, so every day write down, okay, this is what's stressing me out. Here's what solutions are, but here's how I can do, 3 self-care tips for the day, and then get them into your routine. We're not always good about keeping to that routine, right? Because then the next crisis call happens and you're like, oh, I didn't get to do this today, so maybe I'll do that tomorrow. And then we always think we have more time, and we don't always have more time.
Mhm.
So this is really, really helpful. Where do we find resilience when we are just too tired to do anything? Let's close with that type of dialogue, and then we'll talk about how people can find you if they want to learn more about you or get your book.
Sure. The idea of resilience is something that people say, I don't have any, I'm burned out, I'm rigid, I can't do anything right now, I'm reactive. Okay. So first off, take a breath. And then, think about a rubber ball. When you take a round rubber ball and you throw it against the cement floor, it bounces. That's resilience. And what that is it's absorbing the energy of the impact, and then it's using that energy to move forward. And when we can recognize that, we can find the springboards in our life. Mm-hmm. And we all have ways to lift ourselves up, those springboards that are like, wow, I just remembered why I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. I just remembered something that happened in my childhood that I'm really grateful that happened. When we can remember love, when we can find things in our lives that contain beauty. I often teach people to pick an object that maybe it's a rock they carry in their pocket, that's simply a reminder of, oh, that was from that beach I was on, a shell, whatever it is. Those little memories spark a tiny amount of joy, no matter what. We look at it and we remember and we go, wow, that was beautiful. Mm-hmm. That simple pause for beauty, for love, for kindness, for gratitude, huge in helping us to take care of ourselves, to be more resilient. And then we can go on to the next time we hit the cement or we hit the fan, as it were.
So I just want to demonstrate something because, everybody's like, oh, this sounds great, but what's the reality of it? Like, I'm just so busy, because when you are overwhelmed, everything is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I have, and Cheryl, if you're watching this, these came from a friend of mine who sees the value in aging planning. And she's so cool. She sends just like, she's really thoughtful. And so she sent me this. This is a turtle. I live in Florida. So she's like, well, that's a given. So she sent me this turtle, and then she sent this card that says, you got this. And so, whether you're a business owner or multi-business owner, plus family caregiver, plus, we all have, multiple roles, right? Brother, sister, wife, husband, we all have multiple roles and multiple demands on us. So even for the best of us, even though we know how to do self-care and we preach it to people every day, that doesn't mean that we're doing the best job at it ourselves, right? So I have these on my desk lamp, my desk light. And so sometimes I even find myself going to look at these and be like, you've got this. And then the turtle, just because it's cute and it just makes me laugh or makes me smile. So that's why I say, in the podcast, even if you just start laughing, even though, I work from home, so no one's going to think I'm crazy because I work from home. But like, if you're in the office or the cubicle and you start laughing, it's okay. Just say, you know what? I'm just taking my moment. So just even simple little reminder things like this can make a difference. So it doesn't have to be this like long drawn out, big, time consuming, expensive type of thing. Just something simple like this. Right.
Yep. Absolutely true.
So how do people find you, Janet, in case they have questions or they're like, I want to learn more about this breathing thing and meditation? How would people find you?
The best place to find me is on Janet Fouts, Fouts.com. That's my main website. You can find me on LinkedIn and all social media, really, at Janet Fouts or J Fouts if you go on Twitter. But the easiest place is on my website. There's contact forms there if you want to reach out and just ask questions. I'm always here to answer questions for people and to help them, because that's really what I love doing, as it is for you.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So excellent. Thank you, Janet, for your time, your expertise, your tips, your suggestions, your information today. I'm so glad that this worked out, that we could coordinate and have you be on the podcast. For those of you who might have joined in a little bit later, my name is Annalee Kruger. I'm the owner of CareRight Incorporated. I'm a nationwide family caregiver consultant, and we put aging plans in place based on what your specific needs and goals are. So if you want to learn more about CareRight, obviously you do go to the website, is a great place to start. It's www.carerightinc.com. And when we publish this podcast, all of our information and contact information will be there as well. Janet obviously spoke about her book that she wrote. I too wrote a book. I've had literally thousands of families in the last 30 years that I've been working with them say, I wish that there was like a, what do we do with mom and dad type of book. So this is called The Invisible Patient, the financial, physical, and emotional toll of family caregiving. It's jam-packed with tools, checklists, scripts, so that in case you want to start at least broaching these conversations about aging and caregiving and dementia, this is a really good place to start. It's full of tips and strategies. And then if you decide you're like, oh, this is way more involved than what we know how to do, because it will be, just reach out. And we offer a free complimentary 30-minute consult, just like Janet does on her website as well, just to kind of get a sense of what's going on, what's not working well, and then review some of our, aging planning packages or family consulting packages. So this has been amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think since we are doing this, this recording is right in the new year here in 2023, a really good goal for all of you listening would be, let's check ourselves. Where am I on that gauge of family caregiver burnout? Am I a family caregiver? How much grit do I have left? And please, please, please don't wait until you're so burned out, or you have you're not healthy, you have emotional issues, or you're burned out, or you're risking your career or your family relationships. Don't wait until then. Reach out to us now, and we're very happy to serve you wherever you are. Janet is also virtual, so you work with people wherever, or companies, wherever they are as well. So thank you so much, Janet, for your time today, and we will continue to bring you excellent resources for you, your businesses, and your families. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Annalee, and thank you for all the work that you do. I think it's really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It takes a village to help these families be successful, right?
Thank you for tuning into the CareRight podcast. We hope today's discussion has provided you with valuable insights. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast with others who might find it helpful. Remember, CareRight is more than just a podcast. It's a community dedicated to supporting family caregivers with comprehensive care planning, crisis management, and resources for every stage of aging. Stay connected with us for future episodes as we continue to explore essential topics in aging planning, elder care, and financial planning. Until next time, take care, plan wisely, and remember, you're not alone in your caregiving journey.